Archie, what do you think the best way to save for kids is?
Well, Jimmy, there's a great new account called the TRIP account. Weekly wisdom to help you retire and stay that way. This is Last Paycheck. Well, welcome back to the Last Paycheck podcast, brought to you by Hoxton Planning and Management. We're your hosts, Archie Hoxton and Jimmy Sutch. And today we are talking about a new savings vehicle, a new investment vehicle made available by the big, beautiful bill and the modifications to the tax code and retirement planning that kind of brought into the picture. They're called TRIP accounts, and they are pretty interesting and have some really sort of new planning ramifications that we should all be aware of, I think.
Yeah, it's not uncommon for people to come to us and say, gosh, how do I save for my grandchildren or my children or niece or nephew or whoever it may be? And out of this big, beautiful bill came another way to save outside of some of the more traditional ways to save, like maybe a UTMA.
Or a 529.
Yeah.
Custodial IRA.
That's right. So a UTMA is just, essentially you have an account for a minor, and then when the minor becomes an adult, essentially the age of majority in a particular state, normally just around 21 years old.
Some places 18, yeah.
That's right. But the account becomes the minors at that age when they become an adult. So that's a problem for a lot of people. Yeah, it would have been a problem for me to get some money when I was 18 years old, right?
18 or 21, and suddenly you're in full control. There are no limitations, no consequences. Yeah, that's a problem for a lot of people.
It's a problem.
If you have something like a 529, there's a lot of constraints around how you can use it. It's got to be qualified education expenses. Otherwise, you're facing penalties to take it out for other purposes.
Yeah, and you just get some pushback with 529s like, hey, what if, my son becomes a famous singer and he doesn't go to college and he wants to buy a house with his 529? And I say, well, his earnings from his CDs should probably have done okay by then. But nonetheless, like the 529s get some pushback because they're just generally so restrictive. So people hesitate to push too much money into them.
And then you've got the custodial IRAs, which their big drawback is that the child has to have earned income.
Right.
And so you're either they've got a job, which probably isn't happening until they're, 15 or 16 years old, or you've got to figure out a way to kind of employ them if you have a business. But, those aren't options that are, ideal for everybody.
Yeah, it requires getting a creative, and it requires you having a business, and it complicates things.
It does.
So then it takes us on to what's maybe the next best thing, right? And that's these type of accounts.
So these new accounts they combine aspects of the other options, the UTMAs, the 529s, the custodial IRAs, and I would say give probably the best, most flexible option for long-term savings for a child. So they have contribution limits, they have tax benefits and tax rules, and then there are some interesting strategies that we can get into on how you might maximize the tax benefits for your kids or grandkids.
Yeah, I guess the first thing to think about is like who is eligible.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's kind of unique because sometimes this is a little confusing, but if your child's born between, I believe, 25 and 28, they'll actually receive a grant from the federal government, which funds it to the tune of $1,000, is our understanding. But who's eligible to open the account is essentially anybody under 18. Right? So that's kind of exciting for folks to know there's a way to save even though you miss out probably on the grant.
Yeah. Well, and there are private individuals and businesses that are considering, if you were just outside of that, if you had a kid born in 2024, there's a wealthy businessman who has pledged, I'm going to make sure that those kids also get their bonus, which is kind of cool. And there's employers that are looking at doing that as well. So So there's a great way to kind of get a little bit of a start and get some of that first funding in there for your under 18 kids.
So there's the eligibility piece, and then there's like the contribution piece.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
So so the contribution, like an IRA, there's a limit on how much you can contribute per kid per year, and that's $5,000, and that's it's going to be $5,000 for the next couple years. In 2028, they're going to index that to inflation. So much like an IRA, where there was a time where you could contribute $6,000, that's gone up to $7,500. So over time, that contribution limit will grow. But the really important piece is that contribution, unlike a traditional IRA, is going to be made with after-tax dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So you can contribute $5,000 from money you've already paid taxes on. You can do that every year until they're 18.
Yeah.
Which, $5,000 a year, if you add the inflation, that you could end up maxing it every year. You could end up with over $100,000 just in contributions that you've made to this account for them. That doesn't include the earnings.
And to take a step back for a second, so they can put in $5,000 per child, right? But on top of that, if the child has earned income and is able to contribute potentially to an IRA, right? This does not impact the amounts they're able to contribute to an IRA.
Right.
Which is kind of fascinating and really makes this unique.
Yeah. So let's say you have a kid who works. So they're maybe 16 years old. They've got a job while they're in school. You're putting away $5,000 into into this account, and they're maxing out an IRA if they have enough earned income.
They cut grass in the summer or something like that, and they're putting a couple bucks into a Roth IRA. It just doesn't impact those contributions, which is fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
This is over and above that, if it's possible.
Right.
Yeah, but the pre-tax piece is interesting. So I guess the concept of this is kind of trying to invest in the future of America is the idea or the intention, I think.
Enabling retirement savings and making that easier.
And so like as a parent, you're putting in dollars into your kid or child's account with after-tax money, right? So you pay taxes on that $5,000 or however much you put in. But to entice companies to invest in the future of America, they've actually allowed those contributions to be what?
Pre-tax.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Up to $2,500.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have children. If I were working for a big company that did this, they could contribute $2,500 pre-tax to my child's account.
Now that does get included with the total of the $5,000 is our current understanding.
Yeah.
But it does kind of encourage these employers, and it's another nice benefit as an employee to some of these bigger companies. I think I read that some of these bigger banking institutions, Schwab,
JP Morgan,
Wells, I think, have basically committed to either putting in $1,000 as a match to the parent or funding it to some extent. So a nice benefit.
There's also an allowance for state and local governments and charities to make contributions to these accounts. So, that's sort of another interesting wrinkle in this is there's a lot of opportunity for institutions of all kinds to invest in these accounts and create benefits for employees, for local citizens. So and potentially donors to charities. It's receiving some kind of interesting benefits back. So I don't know if there's rules on, guiding. That's sort of a loose part of it right now.
I think the part I want you to talk about is the most unique part about this, right? So you're putting in dollars after tax.
Yeah.
So you would kind of take a step back and think like, okay, does this turn into like a Roth of some kind or something like that? But the tax situation or implications of these accounts are quite unique.
Yeah. So they're almost like a cross between a Roth and a traditional, or there's actually a type of IRA that you might see called a non-deductible IRA. You're putting after-tax dollars in, but the money that you eventually withdraw, the earnings are taxable. Your contributions, since you already paid taxes, are not. That's what this ultimately becomes. When they turn 18, it's converted into an IRA, but you've got most of the contributions are likely after tax. All the earnings. So let's say you have 100,000 in there of contributions and another 80,000 of earnings. 100,000 of contributions, tax-free because you've already paid. The earnings and all of the earnings that accumulate over the child's lifespan are taxed as ordinary income when they're withdrawn. If they're withdrawn according to the rules, penalties could be involved for early withdrawals. So that's another important piece of this.
That's a nuance to it all.
The other piece is that you may also have some pre-tax contributions mixed in from, like we talked about with employers or charities, so on and so forth, that you have to, there's some documentation that you have to keep track of what's pre-tax and what's not. Because the pre-tax contribution and the earnings on that contribution would be fully taxable as ordinary income. So there's some record keeping that's got to be done.
That'd be tough.
That is sort of complicated.
Yeah, I think another interesting concept of these accounts is, and just starting to put everything into perspective here, it's like when somebody comes to us and asks us the best way to save for their kids, the answer is always Roth. But it has to be possible, right?
Right.
Most of the time, if you can get dollars into Roth accounts, you're moving in the right direction, especially for somebody that's a child or a toddler, and he has a lifetime of compounding interest to look forward to.
And is probably not paying any taxes on income right now because their income's so low.
That's right. So if we take this one step further, right, and not get our head out over our skis too far, but one step further, this is a cool way to fund almost like an IRA. And in the future, there might be opportunities for like a Roth conversion when your child or the minor is in a very, very modest tax bracket.
Yeah.
So it could be in the future maybe an indirect way to potentially fund a Roth.
Here's a perfect example. Let's say your kid just turns 18. Let's go back to let's keep even numbers. Let's say you have 100,000 in contributions and 100,000 in earnings. And we'll assume no investment growth just for the simplicity of the tax concept. They turn 18. This is now converted into basically an after-tax IRA where earnings are taxable, contributions are not. Let's say they're in college. They're just focusing on school. They're not working. They
Still
have no
cutting
income.
grass, maybe.
Yeah. Let's say you convert a portion for 4 years.
Yeah.
And they have no income or whatever. There's a scenario in which that you could end up converting to Roth with virtually no tax impact or a really, really small tax impact. Maybe they've got, 15,000 standard deduction as a single person. And maybe, you do 25,000 a year. So they've got $10,000 of recognized income. So 100,000 in earnings, 25,000 a year for 4 years. You've converted everything to Roth. And maybe you've paid over that time somewhere between, a couple thousand and $5,000 in taxes or something along those lines, which is insanely low, insanely cheap way to convert to Roth.
That's right.
Now you've got a $200,000 Roth account at age 22.
Yep, exactly. So, I mean, it's one of the biggest barriers to wealth is taxes, of course. And this is just another tax advantage way to save, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's so many cool opportunities with these accounts. Of course, there's still a place for a UTMA. There's still a place for a 529. There's a place for custodial Roth. This is just another tool in the toolkit.
For sure.
Because it's like we said, contributing to this account doesn't limit your ability to contribute to all those others. So if you want to have a paid for education, a custodial Roth IRA, this account that you convert to Roth IRA to max out have a giant Roth for them as a young adult with a huge advantage And then you have a UTMA that they could then, use for their first house or something, whatever it ends up being. I mean, there's a...
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think these accounts are going to be similar. I think some of this is, to be determined. But it appears as if you're going to have not many restrictions about the investments you can choose in the account. So you can get, pretty aggressive with your investments if you wish. And hopefully over time, see some growth in the accounts. It does seem so that not until this summer is actually when we're getting super excited about this stuff, but it seems like we're kind of in a little bit of a pause.
Yeah.
This summer of 2026 looks, July to be a little bit more accurate. It looks like that's when you're going to allow to start funding these accounts.
Right. And then you've got to have, the institutions, you got to figure out where to...
There's the logistics of it all.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, this is something that, Jimmy, it's like you were saying, if you're asking the question, how do I give my grandchildren a leg up? How do I give my children a leg up? This is a great way, especially because the power that this account can have over a lifetime to prepare for retirement, a lifetime of compounding, so that, maybe they can direct a little bit more of their earnings towards, buying houses are expensive. And maybe they're a little bit more, they've got a sort of a leg up for retirement. I mean, this is a great way to kind of figure out what to do with any excess income you want to donate to your kids.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Awesome. Well, I think we could probably keep talking about it for a while, but it's probably all the time we've got for today. So if you like the video, make sure to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hit the bell for notifications, share it with your family and friends, and leave us a comment if you have questions or thoughts or ideas for episodes. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time. You've been watching Last Paycheck, weekly wisdom to help you retire and stay that way. If you like this show, be sure to hit like and subscribe. Last Paycheck is available anywhere you get your podcasts.